So anyway, we move on to the panel now to just talk through some of the issues that have come off here. So thank you to Paul, to Steve, to Andy, to Sarah and to Shamala for joining us up here on stage for just sort of 15, 20 minutes to chat through things. And what's interesting is the fact that there was talk about parking and EV charging infrastructure working together. There was talk about, Andy said, you know, working in with parking, and all the stuff that Paul's doing is so important to everything else that we have in the in our industry. And so, Steve, I guess starting with you, when you were saying about handing over some of the stuff to Topaz, given UTMC is all about bringing disparate parts of traffic management into one central database, how would the experiences you've had over the last 20, 25 years help actually the different working groups within TTF work together?
Yeah, it's quite a question actually there, Paul. I think UTMC has quite a long history. We're probably into about nearly 3 decades of UTMC. And it started out as a very technical-oriented project or initiative, which was very much focused on how we connect things from the roadside to what were then common databases, which was a kind of a new concept at the time. So UTMC was very much involved at the forefront of writing specifications, and the term UTMC compliance crept into local authorities, who would very often use that in their tender documents to ensure that they got, or they knew what they were buying, basically, because it helped them to do that. And that was fine up until around about the mid-2000s, so 2008, 2009, when we had the financial crash. Investment in UTMC was severely limited, and at that point we couldn't really progress very much with developing technical specifications and standards, and that's been the case up till very, very recently. And that's why we've really are now refocusing UTMC to move away from the technical elements of what we do on the ground, because there are other organisations already doing that, and they're doing it very well, such as Topaz and ARTSM and others around there. So we're looking at moving away from the pure technical focus and into one that's more about operational, how we facilitate things to happen between the various groups, including these working groups here as well. And that's very much an evolution of UTMC as it is at the moment, rather than trying to carry on as we were before.
And that's kind of a work in progress.
And that is very much a work in progress, and it's something that we'll allude to this afternoon in the presentation I've got coming through, and what the future of UTMC is, because it's quite different from where it's come from. So it is moving forward with that.
Watch the space, we'll come back to that later. Andy, you've always talked about your dislike of the term CAV, because you always say it's connected and big pause, autonomous or automated or whatever you want vehicles. You concentrate very much on connected vehicles. Are you finding that message, that the two things are very different and connected vehicles are here and now, are you finally getting that message across?
I think so, yes. We're starting to get at least some recognition that connected vehicles don't require lots more R&D, that data is available. And also, as I regularly point out, it's not just about shiny new cars, but old ones and things that move, including pedestrians and cyclists. I still think there's some concern that connectivity is just about getting, as we heard at a conference the other day, just get Netflix into the car, rather than warnings of problems ahead. The connected parking piece relies on decent connectivity, whether you're standing at a parking machine and trying to put money in and it can't connect, or it's your connected vehicle. And I know there's been lots of thinking about improving the connectivity that we get in terms of cells. So I have got some traction, but I've still a long way to go. I'm kind of helped by the fact that autonomous vehicles are just a few years away, but have been since I was a teenager, really. So.
And right, well, you mentioned about parking and things. So Sarah, the NPP that you've been working so hard on. Now, we've had the disappointing, but I would say not surprising news about ITMF this morning. You know, I don't think anybody in this room could have been shocked by what Darren announced. MPP to me feels like it's stalled. Where are we on actually getting the national parking platform? Because it's one of those things that just seems like a blindingly good idea. Can't we just get on with it?
So I would probably agree it is a blindingly good idea. I think I'm conscious of what I can say at the moment. There is a lot of work being had in the background to keep that programme running and support the 10 local authorities who are on it and keep the momentum of the 200 that are interested. I think I could speak from an industry perspective that the industry want it to succeed. And I think the DFT have spent a lot of money and they want it to succeed. So it's looking at how we move it forward so that it does continue to deliver what it's doing at the moment.
Does it have to be through government, or could the different app providers and the local authorities just do it anyway?
There are a number of options being considered. I think at the moment it is a DFT product, and that we have to respect that they spend a lot of time and money doing it, and the industry want to continue working with DFT to deliver a final outcome.
Okay. Now, talk to me about what you're doing, working with the lady to your left on EVs, by the fact that, you know, the Venn diagram between what the two of you are working on gets closer every day, it seems.
It does indeed, and I think one of the things we are very key on is, as a driver, whether you're paying for your EV charging or you're paying for your parking, it's one transaction in the motorist's head. From a parking manager's perspective, it's probably two, and it's making sure that internally we make that system and that connectivity as easy as possible so that motorists only pay one connection. I think that probably ties into our previous conversation as well in the long term. So I think there are opportunities within National Parking Platform to simplify that further. And I think that helps everyone make it simpler, particularly tying in things like the Alliance of Parking Data Standards. That means the connectivity for new suppliers becomes easier.
Okay, Shamala, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Sarah. It does need to sort of combine together, not have two separate transactions. At the moment they are. Even in Coventry, we don't have them combined as yet. I think it needs to, because there are so many players in there, it's not just one entity who is taking the end, sort of the cost. So that is not as simple as what I'm told. So it is just a question of sort of working together and trialing to see what actually works.
When I write about this, and we've got a kind of, they're not sister website, but a friend website that works with Highways News called Transport and Energy, who basically are all about EV charging infrastructure, etc. Coventry seems to be one of the trailblazers, and that's where you are. So for other local authorities, what are you doing in Coventry, and what can others learn from you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been talking about sort of on a national level. I'm going to talk just about Coventry. I think with charging infrastructure, it is case studies that sort of provides the knowledge base. So yes, Coventry has been doing a lot. We have sort of 20 short of 1,500 public chargers. Typically they are curbside chargers. But we are also trialling other solutions like pavement gully channels. We only last week completed 7 installation on a trial basis. We are looking to find out from a technical perspective how they fit in and react, if you like, over the year with the pavement surface materials. So our highways officers will be doing, sort of tests and surveys, and also speak to other authorities to find out how this solution can be provided. It is not that simple providing this solution because of neighbouring discontentment if you like. So yes, this is something that we are trialing, and other solutions in relation to charging infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Paul, D-TRO, other things that we've talked about being reviewed by the new government. Is D-TRO completely separate from any politics, any ministerial thoughts, or is there, have you had to do anything within the department to actually make sure that there's still support for it?
Firstly, can I say that I didn't realise that everyone else was filming on location? I'll have to speak to Darren about the DFT's filming budget. It's been remarkably smooth sailing, actually, Paul. You know, the new government ministers came in. We were kind of waiting around to, you know, get the word down, but it was positive. You know, no concerns at all, and it's been full steam ahead for us. Luckily, you know, unlike some other programmes.
And how are you doing? You mentioned the milestones. Explain more to what those milestones for next year mean to the people in the room.
So there's some stuff internally, like we have to go through a process around government digital services, and they will look at the work we've done and kind of give us a pass mark. So that's nothing for you guys to worry about, but it's kind of in D-TRO Towers, that's kind of what we're focused on every day at the moment. You know, this assessment's coming up. So, you know, once we've passed that, you can be sure that our architecture's up to standard and the project's, you know, been kind of approved. And that's what allows us to go into public beta. So I know these terms are a bit funny, but we're in private beta at the moment. So that's kind of people that have expressed an interest, and you know, we've onboarded them. But once you get into public beta, any traffic authority in this room or in the whole of England can join and take part and join the service. So really, Paul, get into that. Everything's all about getting into public beta for us in January.
Okay, and so now we're pretty much out of time, so I want to just quickly go down the panel and we'll start with you, Paul. What is your key takeaway for people in this room when it comes to thinking about D-TROs for next year?
How are you going to do it? How are you going to get your temporary orders and your permanent orders into the service? Whether you need to do some procurement, whether you need to be part of that GIS support group that we've got, whatever it is, make sure that the temp and the perm people know what it is they've got to do.
Okay, you might as well just pass the mic down, and so Steve.
Well, I think the key takeaway from here is that UTMC is in a process of evolution. And it's ongoing. We've still got some way to go yet, but we will hopefully come through this with a UTMC that's fit for purpose and delivers benefit as it's always done in the past.
Excellent. Andy?
Darren talked about getting evidence of the benefits of what everybody does in this room with government funding. Connected vehicles can provide that quite quickly. We did some early work in order to generate some money in order to get the TSOC and Greenlight Fund money. We'd like to keep that machinery going. In many cases, it's available retrospectively, so the fact you didn't do a before study doesn't matter because somebody collected the data, and many of the suppliers are in this room.
I would say probably reiterating that MPP, I think, will continue, and the industry will work exceptionally hard with DFT to make sure that continues and support that, and then working with TROs, digitalised connected vehicles and EVs so that we connect all of that together is important for next year.
And finally, Shamala?
Yeah, I think sharing all the data from our trials, working with parking to sort of realise how we can work together from parking and charging, and looking at accessibility.
Excellent, thank you. A couple of plugs for Highways news stories that actually fit into what we've been talking about here. There's a story on today about NPED and the fact that it's actually now officially launched in Liverpool, and so you can read more about that and find out more about NPED, because I think it's a really fascinating and frankly in some ways quite horrifying project, because you see just how many non-compliant vehicles there are. And Andy said about the before and after, and yes, other providers are available, but INRIX did some work based on what Darren talked earlier about Rotherham to find 4%. So it was a very quick and dirty piece of work that they did, but found a 4% improvement, and that's in the traffic signals obsolescence grant, which wasn't necessarily even there to improve traffic flow. It was to make sure it wasn't going to get worse in the future. It's had a positive effect. That's a great story. That's the sort of thing we need to be looking at more and more in the industry, is those sorts of things, the before and after. And as Andy said, they were able to do it without having to have done any work before the changes were made. We're out of time now, but I'm just going to thank, and as I say, the video is going to be up online, so if you want to share it with any colleagues or go back and watch a particular piece of it, you can do. But for now, can I just thank Paul and Steve and Andy and Sarah and Shamala, and thank you for your attention.